I'm resident of Color with Jewel Sage, joined by my buddy Patrick McCray and my buddy Gordon Dymowski. We're here to talk more about The Prisoner. It's Your Funeral. Is the episode of the title. It sounds very serious.
We're getting a little testy, aren't we, Jewel?
He's getting a little.
There was some testy stuff apparently going on behind the scenes between McGowan and the director. Apparently there was a shouting match.
There was much more than that.
Well, tell us about it.
Yeah, tell us about it, Gordon.
Well, okay. Well, as Jewel alluded to, there was a shouting match. And you remember a couple podcasts ago, I talked about how McGowan nearly choked out a guy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This episode, the Mark Eden, the guy in the pink jacket, he was the guy who nearly got choked out in that fight scene.
You know what? That the pink jacket says it all.
Yeah.
Now,
Where's Rizzo? That's what I want to know.
That was a Grease reference, folks. You got to keep paying attention.
Now, here's a question. Was it just McGowan lost his temper or what?
Did he ever have his temper in check? It's like the Hulk. You know, the secret is I'm always angry.
Here's the thing. Let's set the scene. McGowan's already an intense actor, and he's got he's got a reputation. This is his baby. This is his project.
Yeah.
He's writing the scripts. He's directing them. He's the lead actor. He is. You have when people ask, well, what's this Prisoner thing about? Nobody knows. I think the one thing, this was an episode that I traditionally haven't liked in the past, but I think part of what makes it interesting is I think that the co-stars are kind of playing it slightly comic, which gives it like a weird, goofy charm in the beginning. But I think that with McGowan, this is just, I think this is a guy who had, I think he had anger management issues, to put it kindly. I think this is a guy who, I think he wanted to, I think most of us, if we want to break out of being the actor, the one role, and move into another, usually there's an adjustment period. And we usually try to work our way up. McGowan was like, McGowan was given a pile of money and said, go and do this. And I think the fact that he was so gung-ho on this project, I am not excusing his behavior. I think he just didn't have the sense of perspective where, some of the stuff that you work through, and you might have to have a little bit of I'll have a little bit of a temper tantrum, but I'll get over it. He didn't have that. He was also a raging alcoholic by what it sounds like. He loved his gin and tonics. And that probably had a lot to do with it. Like, for example, this is the first time I'm doing this podcast completely sober. Different experience.
That's
he was big into, I mean, I'm sorry. He was big into the gin and tonics. I was just watching Don't Knock Yourself Out, where gin and tonics were largely credited for the creation of Rover. That's what they were drinking when they were, I assume they had just, they weren't in lounge chairs. They'd just fallen down and were staring up and, holding onto the ground for dear life as it spun around under them. And they saw Rover up there as a weather balloon and called his agent, and the rest is history.
Didn't they initially have like a go-kart or something?
They had a dome over a go-kart, and I lost a friendship over this. I did. There's a friend of mine who was a huge Prisoner fan, and he'd gone to Port Mirren and all of that, and he had heard the official story, and the official story, which was done to save face, was that they sent it out over the water and it just sank and didn't come back up. None of it was true. This thing never was water worthy, seaworthy at all. It was a go-kart. And it looked dumb. And the guy who was driving it had no visibility. And it could do none of the things. It wasn't intimidating. It just looked like
It looked like a big blue cake.
It did. It
with
did.
A light on it.
It was the least intimidating thing since, Jonathan Harris. And so so they had to come up with this other thing, and they got drunk in their misery and were looking up and saw a weather balloon and said, yes. Well, I tried telling my friend about that. And I said, it's on the Blu-ray set. Well, I haven't looked at the Blu-ray set. Well, it's on there. I don't believe it. It's no, I've been to port. This is what it is. What was I supposed to do?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
What you should have done, Patrick, was encourage him to invest in a scuba expedition where they go to Port Marion and they dredge the water to find the original rover. That's what you do.
You are correct. Boy, more of that crazy martial art in this thing. He really, Patrick, going doubles down on the karoshi, or what is that what it's called? Or
it's called Kosho.
Kosho. There's no show like Kosho, like no show I know. And it's even.
I love the Kosho with a little bit of ginger and soy sauce. Lovely.
It's really good. It's even dumber in this episode than it was in the one that we saw the other day. I mean, it really is undignified and awkward, and Patrick McGowan looks embarrassed to have won in this contest, and the guy's wet. And
it looked like he just chucked him in the water out of frustration.
Yeah. I would have just jumped in and said, "You win. Can I go have a drink now?" Now, I'll tell you, speaking of which, you've got two number twos in this. It's like put them together as number 4. But the main one, Darren, is that his name?
Yeah, Darren Nesbitt.
Darren Nesbitt. Before anyone says anything, I'm going to take a controversial stance. I think he's great.
I love him too.
Oh, good. Okay, good.
Yeah, I know he admitted that he didn't know how to play it, but I like the fact that he's just kind of like, yeah, I'm here.
He's this cool university intellectual. It's like having Dick Cavett as the number 2.
Yeah, he's just kind of like all the numbers are like intense and they have big plans. He's just kind of like, sure, dude, whatever.
He is like, I always wondered what Steve Douglas was smoking in that pipe on My Three Sons, because he was so mellow. No matter what happened, Steve Douglas, he had it under control.
Well, Steve Douglas was sharing Darren Nesbitt. You know that, right? Whatever he was smoking.
I did not. The other thing I like about Darren Nesbitt is that he looks like a Jerry Anderson character.
Yeah.
He really does. I mean, it's like a super marionation villain. But I think he is the most interesting unsung number 2 there is. You would never have put him in Dance of the Dead. You would never have put him in Fallout. I mean, he would have hired someone to go in and do the psycho babble thing with number 6 and just sort of sat back with a grappa and watch what happened. Made wry comments about it with Noam Chomsky. And that's great. I think it's really funny. This is a number 2 I wish they had brought back again and again, because he's unflappable, not in an English way, where the English just have a refusal to acknowledge the catastrophes going on around them. And so that creates this constant seething rage. In this case, he truly is unaffected by what's going on. And yet he never comes across as smug. It's a really cool combination of elements. I wish this guy had gotten his own like spy series. Peter Wingard did.
Yeah. What did you think of the number 2, Gordon?
I loved him. I think I think traditionally I never really liked this episode because like at the end it gets into whole assassination plot, which is like bog standard. But in watching it this time, what I realized is that the intro is kind of played very comedically. It's not absurdist, but it's very lighthearted. And I think he does a lot of that, where it's like you go, where there's like the scene where they're watching number 2 and he gets the prognosis. Also, fun fact: the woman in the hat and the cape, who's doing that, Wanda Ventham, Benedict Cumberbatch's mom.
Oh yeah. Cool.
But anyway, yeah, there's that kind of. He's just kind of like, Darren Nesbitt's just kind of like, okay, yep, we could do that. Yeah, we can do that. And then when the whole assassination plot comes in, normally I'd be like, okay, where I don't get how he's manipulating number 6. You get the sense that he's just like, okay, yeah, I know there are these people revealing their plans. I know this guy's doing this. Let's just get number 6 involved somehow. There's no big plan to get him to crack. It's just, let's just do that.
Let's get him involved. Do some crafts. The thing that's also cool is that he knows he's a short timer.
Right.
He knows he's on his way out. He's already got his room booked at hedonism through wherever he's going. He's a happy guy. It's like, yeah, I don't have to crack him. I don't have to break him. I have to involve him in this weird role play thing. Cool. Yeah, that's great. And then you're going to take over and do the heavy lift. Outstanding. He's like the Henry Blake of number 2s. And Henry Blake is my leadership model. He really is. I love that character. And this is the number 2 everyone would want to work for. This is as close to the Anson Mount captain that they're going to get. This is the guy that I'm sure, who is it, the controller? Is that the
bald guy.
Yeah, the controller and Muscat are sitting around saying, God, I wish Darren would come back. He was so cool. We had casual Fridays. And remember, he did that luau. And we had fajita night in the monitor room. And that was, and we hung like a pinata.
And he kept the snack rooms well stocked.
He kept the snack room very well stocked with, good British candy. And it's good stuff. Good. They know how to do chocolate. We're international, but we got to keep some things. And he got rid of the Marmite. Who wanted that anyway? Not me. Did you? No, we don't eat that.
You know who wanted Marmite? The number 2 from A Change of Mind.
Oh, God, that guy. It's all he had. He had Marmite toothpaste. Did you ever smell his breath? It was awful.
I really like how they do multiple number 2s.
Rescue this.
I really like how they do multiple number 2s in this episode. And not just 2, they do a fake sort of facade playback for number 6 that he's been coming in, and each time it's been a different number 2. And I love how Patrick McGowan plays this. He says those were all falsified, which he's right. Really, really great job by the writers and the performers here with that. And I really love the fact that they sort of do a very old school spy maneuver. Let's make a clock a bomb. Let's make this whole thing good. A clock master build us a bomb, which is a very old school British spy stuff. And I like it. It makes the episode credible, and it makes the episode fun when you're trying to get number 6 to play along, which he inevitably does. And I like how him and the woman play off of each other. They're both really, really good. And the clockmaker, too, is really exquisite, as she calls him her father, more like grandfather. And I love how he's up in the clock tower and he's using the binoculars, and McGowan spots him. And he says, well, he could be anywhere. And he spots it. He runs up. And he ends up saving the day, saving the other number 2 from the number 2 that involved him in this in the first place. Really good psychological episode. And just action packed. I love the fight sequence. No, I did not. You said about him choking somebody out. I didn't
Yeah,
know.
they cut that out. They obviously cut that out.
Right.
It's in there.
I didn't know that was this episode. But you're right. They didn't show it. To Gordon's point, they cut it out. But I do love the choreography. The choreography in The Prisoner is very, very underrated. Really, really great stuff. I think, Magoo, and I get he had a hot temper, but he really nails his character. And he plays it to the bone. I mean, and I like that.
But he does get a little shouty when he's talking about they're about to put off a bomb with a radio.
No.
I like that he just can't help being the hero, even in that at this point, because he at this point you can tell number 6 has been in there quite a while, because he talks about you're just gonna mess with me again and again. This is what they do. This is what they don't knock yourself. Don't get too excited. This is just it's a scheme. They're always listening. It's like, oh God, they videotape my bowel movements. It's why I don't know, but they do, and then they play them in that bar in the cave for everybody. That's why Rover shows up. Anyway, but that's beside the point. Talk about the new number 2. But all seriousness aside, the other thing that I think, and I don't really know where this goes, but it is a cultural marker for the episode, is that this is a very Catholic / waspy series. There's certainly no people of color that I've seen, notably maybe an extra or something, I don't know, and on a level that is coded, on a level that reads to the audience, there are no Jews. And, and the father is very much played with the type of voice that would be used at the time to portray Shylock. And it has that alienness, that otherworldliness. He is the first seemingly Jewish character in terms of the cultural markers and the vocal markers that we use to associate with that, and I that has to be on purpose. And certainly there's nothing anti-Semitic at all. That's not what I'm saying. But I think it is significant culturally, and I think it's probably worth asking, why this character? Why this character? Why now? What is the cultural impact that has in the middle of all these WASPs? This because the Village, for being international, gets a few Ukrainians and Eastern Bloc types, sort of, but it's all English. Other than that, and so this is the first of somebody from another culture, or another culture within England.
Yeah, because they have had people of color, and even some of the production staff have said, yeah, it seems like a extraordinary British, but like in Arrival, the woman who drives the taxi is East Asian.
Yeah.
Change of Mind, like the leader of the little encounter group was East Asian.
Okay.
And then I think it might have been I think the last episode we discussed, and this I think shows you kind of how limited they were. There actually was a black man in the control room. That was an actor by the name. Yeah, it was an actor by the name of Earl Cameron, who is in England. He's the first black actor of renown. In fact, he's known as the British Sidney Poitier.
Wow, good.
Just to give you a comparison about how he was treated and how they approached it, one of the other major television roles that he had was in Doctor Who, in the 10th Planet, because he It was William Hartnell's last story. But he was one of the astronauts. There's a spacecraft that's trapped. He's one of the major astronauts. He actually has lines and things to say.
That's a very political moment. That is the British, I think, calling the Americans out. I mean, that has to be an element in there.
Yeah, and that's one of the things about British science fiction is that's your shortcut to how you know you're in the future, because there's a person of color in charge.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there we go. I'm not ready to do it now, but I think it probably is worth an essay or something to investigate when the prisoner does introduce the other someone, not a girl aping a Russian accent or something, but I'm talking about someone very clearly from a different culture. And what does that signify? Because it's not just random. Every minor detail is a major decision. And was Mark Steen still on the show at this time?
I don't know. I would assume. I think he was, because I think he left after it was close to the end of the initial 13 episode run. So
I could see George Markstein saying, "Can we break this up a little bit? Mm-hmm. Can we include, there are more people in England than just, Catholics and Episcopals."
Yeah, because Markstein was kind of the guy who wanted to keep it very spy-ish. He wanted to keep it grounded, and I think McGowan, out of his own pretentiousness, was kind of like, hell no, because it was his ego that drove Markstein out.
Yeah. Yeah, well, because you could it depending on where it fell, this could go either way. It could either say, Markstein saying, let's get a little representation in here. It's not going to kill anybody. Or it could be Patrick McGowan saying, aha, the saboteur. His little slam at George. It could go either way.
You say about Patrick McGowan shouting, and he probably said, "No one will ever shout louder than me." And then Keith Prentice said, "Hold my beer."
Yeah. Shout out to both of them.
Yeah. No, but overall, I really enjoyed the episode. I'm with you guys on the number 2. He's really smooth. He's really laid back. The only time he really gets upset, other than the ending, is when when number 6 buys a thing of candy, he's like, "No, that's wrong. That's wrong." And I love how he's so adamant about it. And you appreciate him for it too.
This was a prisoner episode that I think I had only seen once. I really do. I so focus on the McGowan 7, and then the few like Hammer into Anvil and A, B, and C and Do Not Forsake Me and Girl Who Is Death that are kind of my favorites, that a lot of these others have kind of fallen by the wayside. And this has been a real treat to get reintroduced to them, really, for me, for the first time in about 40 years.
Yeah, and like I said, I've never liked this episode, but watching it now, I think the second half with the assassin plot, I know they kind of have to do some kind of plot, but I think the first half is just brilliant, because I think that might have been why McGowan was so upset. It's like they're taking this serious drama about the individual in society, and they're like, and Nesbitt and Eaton and then Anwar are just like, let's just play casual. Darren's like, hey, you know what? I don't know what I'm doing, so let's just chill.
Yeah, it's great.
But I think that's what adds it for Darren. For somebody who doesn't know what he's doing, he sells his character beautifully.
Mm-hmm. Very much so.
Overall, guys, what do you give this episode? What do you?
I give it an 8 or a 9.
Yeah, I give it an 8 or a 9 too. It's not perfect, but I think it's one of those hidden gems in the Prisoner, where it's like, this is an episode you really need to revisit.
I'm glad I did. I had even forgotten it existed. You give it a 10, Jewel?
Yep, I give it a
That's
10.
right.
I enjoyed it that much because it's 110 miles per hour and it makes no apologies for it either.
Mm-hmm.
It's very fun. It doesn't, and in the process, it doesn't lose the audience ever. And that's important for a series that's about something that's not really trying to answer what the series is about. It keeps you invested in this episode.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I agree. What are we doing next?
Yeah, what's the next episode for us?
Let's see.
What do we have left? What about?
You know what? I was thinking, let's do Not Forsake Me, Oh My Darling, because that's one I've traditionally not really. I think it's just I've thought it's just been there as like it's an episode. So I'd like to revisit it.
I like this episode a lot, and so I mean now I haven't seen it since 1988, but back in 1988 I liked it a lot. So I'm eager to see it again.
Is Thursday good? Is tomorrow good, Gordon? Or
tomorrow's good for me.
Okay, tomorrow night, guys, we'll do Don't Forsake Me, Oh My Darling. For The Prisoner. Links for Gordon Dymowski's Amazon page is going to be in the description box. Link to the Dark Shadows Daybook is going to be in the description box. Go ahead, Patrick.
Jewel, now what episode are we doing again tomorrow?
Oh, for The Prisoner?
Yeah.
Don't Forsake Me, Oh My Darling, I think.
I won't. But what episode are we doing?
We're doing the one with the brain switch.
Because he said, never mind.
Oh my god!
It's like that documentary in my mind.
Oh my god! Well, in my mind is on Tubi. You can watch it, and the other documentary is on YouTube. Both are really, really good. Don't Knock Yourself Out is on YouTube. Both are really good. Link to Don't Knock Yourself Out will also be in the description box. With these two gentlemen's page, go get the Dark Shadows Daybook About. Go check out Gordon's Amazon page. Guys, it is always a pleasure. As always, thank you both so much. Be seeing you.
Seeing you.
Goodbye.
Bye.